Well, good morning, moms. Good morning, everyone. Moms, that video is for you. You're welcome for maybe the Starbucks or the time alone or potentially the dumpster. That could be great. But happy Mother's Day. If, let's say, you didn't get one of those things today, instead, I thought all of us non-moms would play a little game to show you moms how well you're seen and known and loved. So I'm going to put up a quote, and then everyone else, you get to kind of yell like kind of the translation of it. So here we go. Like when mom says, "I don't care where we eat today," what is she saying? In my mind, it's, you have one chance to guess correctly, okay? How about this one? "I don't need anything for Mother's Day." Yeah, okay, I love that. "Please acknowledge my existence," right? Is how I translate that. How about this one? This one's my favorite. "It's fine." It's absolutely not fine, right? How about this one? "My baby boy is moving out. Yay!" Crying emoji. What's really going on there? I'm heartbroken and sad, but I'm also happy and proud. All right, last one here. "I'd love for everyone to be together, but if you can't make it, that's okay." It's not. It's not what I'm translating. "Unless someone is dying, get your butt here." Okay. What's funny is we've all learned how to translate words and phrases of moms, but if my experience and knowledge is anything like yours, we unfortunately are terrible at translating and knowing what to do with many of these core emotions, where these phrases come from. We equate them to things that just are incorrect. So I want to just like kind of point that out. Like loneliness is not the same as being alone, or tears, it does not mean weakness, or grief doesn't mean lack of faith. Heartbreak doesn't mean failure happened. Sadness doesn't mean necessarily brokenness. Loneliness, grief, heartbreak, and sadness, they aren't wrong emotions to experience. They actually point to being fully human. And although many of us would chalk up many of these emotions as just for moms, or something you intentionally ignore or move past because they can feel like a nuisance, what is interesting is Jesus experienced these emotions, and he didn't treat them like a weakness. When looking at Scripture, Jesus showed us what to do with these feelings. And my theory that I want to kind of present to you today is actually many times these feelings move people to good or to greater perspective shifts of life. Did you hear that? Like feeling some of these hurt emotions might make your life better. Now, before we go any further, I do just want to say welcome to Centerpoint. My name is DeMaster. I'm a pastor here. I'm pumped that you're here today. Even if you just came for mom, I'm jacked that you're here. We're happy you're here. I want you to know our vision is to be a church for the unchurched, meaning people that don't really see themselves as churchgoers. And our mission to doing that is to help you, who is here right now in the room, take the next step in your walk with God. And we see that step could be just showing up to church for the first time in a long time. It could be starting a relationship with God. It could be rekindling one. It could be acting upon something that you feel moved to do in the message. But we hope at one point, one of your steps is to help us be the church for the unchurched. But if you haven't been with us for the past few weeks, we're actually in our last week of our series that we've been calling Hello, My Name Is. And we've been digging into emotions. Yay, says no person ever, right? We've been studying and kind of working with like the researcher Brene Brown and her claim that there are 87 emotions. And we've been studying this through her book, Atlas of the Heart. And we've been using our own workbooks to kind of dial in on what just 30 of those 87 mean and are. Survey results, they show that most people can only list 3 emotions when experiencing them. And if you're a guy, like I'd say it's probably like 2. And they aren't even emotions. Hungry and thirsty, right? But in all honesty, like surveys show, the majority of us, we can only list sad, mad, and happy. Of 7,000 people, sad, mad, and happy is like kind of the 3 main ones that they can list. And what we're trying to do is become more emotionally aware and intelligent of the other 84. And I hope that this series has grown your vocabulary and understanding of a lot of these. These are ones we've covered. But I also hope for more than just head knowledge for you over the past few weeks, or feeling like you're now an emotional scholar. My wife told me not to do that British accent. It sounds more Australian. Can tell I watch Bluey instead of Downtown Abbey or whatever it might be. But I hope this series has moved you closer to Jesus. Like, he is the person who I deem to be the most self-aware human and emotionally intelligent person. And I hope, like, we've observed how he lived and dealt with emotions while he was here. And I hope you've seen that, like, he didn't ignore them, and that he can be a mentor to us, a resource that we can look to on how to best respond and feel and use our emotions. And I think he's able to do that with his emotions, or his own emotions, because he acknowledged them. You hear that, guys? Like, he actually felt. Mind blown, right? I heard a therapist once say, feelings aren't necessarily facts, but they still need to be heard or noticed to know what's going on for you or others. It's important for us to do this because they give us information on what is going on, whether it's incorrect or correct inside of you or inside of another. And I want to see how good you're getting at this through kind of assessing body language to see if you've learned maybe a little bit over the past 4 weeks. So here's a guy. What do you think kind of is the emotion going on here? They maybe been this way for months. I would say, like, he looks kind of disappointed, right? What would you do in that situation? Maybe the diagnosis, maybe what we've learned is, like, maybe he has unrealistic expectations of things. Maybe he has discouragement. Well, what's the thing discouraging him? Let's dig into that. How about this one? A picture of a person, she looks stressed, right? What do you think this person's feeling? Like, it's stress, for sure. Like, what do you think they need? Well, is it just daily stress? Because that's life, right? Or are they in this overwhelmed amount of stress? Are they in an anxiety spiral? Do they need to give gratitude to get out of it? Do they need to take a break to get out of it? And then the one that we're looking at today, like, there's a picture of a person who's maybe heartbroken. What do you think this person, like, needs to do to get through his heartbreak? Now, to know what to do in each of these circumstances comes from being in tune with your own experiences, learning from others, and I think the missing piece that I think a lot of current research doesn't do is they don't look to Jesus and what he did. But to be clear, to avoid your emotions does nothing. The stats say emotions will come out. Like, it talks about, like, how, like, there's, like, all these different mortality risks and heart disease. You're high risk if you, like, hold it in, meaning, like, it's going to cause a problem somewhere. Now, some of you are emotional Sallies. Like, you are, like, high and low and all over the place, displaying them, like, constantly. And then some of you are maybe like steady Eds, and which maybe just means you are actually emotionally constipated, and it's going to come out at some point in some way, right? So today's words are ones that we typically use or have in the mood of I'm hurt. Words like loneliness and heartbreak and hopelessness and sadness and grief and despair, which if you've been following along in your book, you'll see we actually changed a couple words for this week. Originally, I kind of just like jumbled a bunch of the best of the remaining words for our last week, ones that kind of fit multiple moods. But because so many of you have had so much positive feedback over this series, we ended up switching it out a little bit because we might do a part 2 at some point. We don't know when, but we'll save some of those words for a later time that maybe fits a mood better. But as you look at the words on that I just had up there, I think it's typical to think, that sounds painful, right? Not worth it. Avoid at all costs, right? Like, no person wants to be or feel heartbreak or sadness or to be in grief. And these words can be a lot of pain, pointing us to thinking that pain means something's wrong. But how I want to think about these words this morning is that pain in this mood typically means something mattered. Like, grief probably means love existed, or heartbreak means you actually really loved, Or loneliness means like you were made for connection and there's got to be better. Or sadness means like something valuable that you had has changed, but you had it for a while nonetheless. Now these are signals that help us remember love or to encourage us to keep on loving. But people like me, we tend to treat emotions like these like warning signs on our car dashboard that you just like avoid and try to forget about. I have a truck, and it's been getting older. It's 10 years old now, and it's a solid vehicle, I think, still. The dash lights, there's always something coming up on my dash now. Low tire pressure, tire sensor, door ajar, whatever it is. And I'll just meh, it's all fine. It's fine. But there has been this annoying one lately, and it beeps. It makes a noise. The other day I was trying to find out, where's the beeping noise coming from so that I can clog it by shoving something in that little speaker, right? That's kind of what I was thinking. Where can I clog this sound hole? And it was the door alarm going off, and although it is an important thing, I do have kids coming in and out of my car, I was hoping just to clog it and just block the warning, block the thing that's showing me something's wrong, and continue on with life. Have you done that before with your hurt emotions? But again, the stats show ignored emotions, they don't disappear, they leak or they go to somewhere else. And if you're like me, it typically leaks through anger. Anger at the TV, needing a new printer because you tried to fix it by hitting it. That rush job on the house project, hammering too hard. It's the explosion on the people you love when it has nothing to do with them. We typically can't just suppress our emotions because it lingers there. So what many of us do to combat this is we don't even let ourselves get to the emotion where we could even have the heartbreak or loneliness or sadness. And our culture or our world praises this. It treats emotional detachment like maturity. Don't care too much. Don't get attached. Move on. Protect your peace, right? Have you thought or said something like that? I know I have it often. But here's what's wrong with that. Jesus never lived emotionally detached. In fact, Jesus felt most of these emotions. He loved deeply enough to hurt deeply. So I want to give you some examples of this as we kind of examine and define our 6 words for this week. And we're going to start with the word loneliness. Loneliness is a disconnected feeling. It's the absence of meaningful social interaction. Now, we talked about this a few weeks ago, but the night when Jesus was arrested and is about to be killed, he goes to the garden to pray. And he asks some of the disciples to come with him while praying, but they fall asleep, it says. They fall asleep, and Jesus finds them asleep. I mean, I'll be the first to admit, I've definitely fallen asleep praying before, for sure. Maybe even in church before I was a pastor, which as a pastor, when that happens, we're just happy you're here. We're happy that you chose to be here even if you're tired. And it kind of motivates us to work harder at our messages. But in this situation, Jesus is kind of mad. They fell asleep. But I think his core emotion is he feels lonely. I wanted to know you guys were in this with me, is probably what he's thinking. And them sleeping is them not being fully there with him. Now, I think it's worth stating for clarity, being alone and loneliness are different things. If you have toddlers right now or kids that are a lot, being alone sounds like an all-inclusive resort, right? I love me some alone time, and I feel like the bathroom is the only time you get alone time. This is real life. Check out this video.
I'm pretty sure my wife thinks I have an intestinal problem.
Taylor doesn't have an intestinal problem. I know what he's doing, because I do too. Okay, Tay, you have the kids, because I'm gonna be in the shower. Oh, this is a really nice shower. Gonna be at least 45 minutes. It's not that I don't love my kids.
Don't get me wrong, I love my kids.
I just love them a little more when I see them a little less.
And the bathroom is non-negotiable alone.
And even that space can get hijacked. If you know, you know, right? But back to Jesus, he is feeling loneliness. He feels he's on his own in this journey. He wanted to bring the disciples in as long as he could, and he feels a bit kind of let down from them because they're absent to him socially in the presence of him. They're not mentally present with him. And what makes matters worse is he knows the next journey he has to do alone. As I was kind of working through this message this week, I thought of this Christian song that is like one of my favorites. It's by the artist Chris Rensma, and it's called Narrow. And it is one I listen to like when I'm in my lonely vibes as a pastor. Now, I get it. More people, when they have lonely vibes, they're thinking like a song like this, like Boulevard of Broken Dreams,
lonely road,
Lonely Road.
one that I have
Or
ever
maybe you're a little older, you're more like Radiohead, Creep, right? But as a Christian, it can feel lonely. And not just like lonely like everyone else experiences, but also lonely in your living, of trying to live for God. And this song that I'm going to play for you in a second is just, it feels raw to me, of how this choice to be a Christian is hard sometimes. I'm going to play like 30 seconds of it. Here's a little clip of some of the words. Check it out.
Walking for a while, mile after mile, my soul's a little weary, but you keep me going, you keep me going. You said it'd be a narrow road, you said it'd be a narrow road, so why am I surprised when it seems I'm on my own? You said it'd be a narrow road, this world will never be my home. The journey might be lonely, but I'd never be alone. Oh, I'd never be alone.
The Christian walk, Jesus says, it's going to be narrow. Like that's scripture. It's going to be narrow or lonely. But a resolve of the loneliness feeling is exactly as he sings in this song. With God, you aren't alone. He says, I'm sure, and surely I'm with you always to the very end of age. Jesus says this to his disciples as he's leaving. He doesn't promise that you're going to have these goosebump feelings of his presence all the time or constant awareness of his presence, but he promises to be with you. You might just need to actively seek him, his words, his community, his direction. But what the feeling of loneliness reminds me of, and maybe you of, and how it can help us, is it reminds us that we have this innate desire for community, for others, for connection. And if you desire it, it must exist. Like Descartes, he says, I think, therefore I am. That's a very common quote, but I think it's better stated by C.S. Lewis. Creatures are not born with desire unless satisfaction for desires exist. And that desire for meaningful connection with others, I think we all have, it exists, is what they're saying. And is what Christianity promises and provides through actually an intentional church here. So loneliness is a signal of what is resolved ahead, and it's a prompting to put yourself out there in a church community now. But it might be narrow at times, and Jesus knew that, especially in his journey. So for you, like, do you need to be reminded of the future where that's resolved? Do you need to be reminded of the present options you have to resolve that? The next word is heartbreak. And heartbreak is defined very simply when love is lost. Heartbreak comes from a time when you deeply loved. Are you hearing that? Like you felt this immense joy of flooding and good. It was unmet or broken, but you felt it, right? Our culture's told us because that could happen, don't care too much. Protect yourself. Don't get too attached. But that is just not the example of Jesus. Like Jesus even like, there's a whole kind of passage about this, but Jesus like, he knew Jerusalem. He knew his people and like, he like wanted the best for them, but like, he just was broken for them. Like, you are not doing what you need to do. He's broken. He's weeping over his city, over his people. He has heartbreak over it. He loves them, but he's broken over what they're doing. He still loved and gave it everything he had, though, even knowing that. And the prediction of God from years prior is this was even known that Jerusalem was going to heartbreak him, that he was going to be rejected and heartbroken by it. Yet the choice of his was still to love in the moment. This example of Jesus, from Jesus, is love is worth it, is what he shows us. Even if break is going to happen, even if you know heartbreak is real and could or is going to happen. Do you believe that, though? There's a person that's here at this church I talked to years ago, and they didn't want to have kids because they didn't know if it would be worth it. That was like a big struggle for them. Like the risk of bringing a child into this world, or what if something were to happen to them or their child? Like, would it be worth it? This is a real feeling, right? But if I was to label it for them, it was fear of heartbreak. This person, they now have children, and if you were to ask them, they'd say like, I don't know what I'd do without these children, right? And they would undoubtedly choose these early years with their kids and loss versus no years at all. Brene, she talks about this in her book in a very relatable way of heartbreak, and she talks about it with her dog. I'll read it for you. She says, like, my first dog, Daisy, got untreatable cancer. So they had him for her for 10 years. She said, the drive home from the vet's office was unbearable. That night, all four of us were sobbing in a big heap. I looked at my kids and said, this is heartbreak. Then I looked over at Lucy, our second dog, who was also missing Daisy, and I thought, God, this hurts, and it's totally worth it. The brokenhearted are the bravest among us. They dared to live. Look at that last line. They dared to live. That's moms, right? Dogs are interesting. I have a dog. Her name's Willow. I've had her since she was a puppy. She was my first girl. Before Sydney, before my kids even. She's 12 now, and she's quite blind, pretty deaf, and still, though, has like this love for life of being with us and going on walks and all of that. And I love my pup. Like, we have done on like so many different excursions together. We've been to the ocean, and she bikes with me and kayaking, all kinds of really cool things. But like, let's be real for a moment. When you get a dog, you know they only live for about 12-ish years. So you're literally setting yourself up for heartbreak. But the decision, which many of us maybe fail to acknowledge, is a decision nonetheless that we are all making in getting a dog, is that heartbreak that you're going to have is worth the love. And most dog owners would say absolutely. Some will do it 5 or 6 times in a lifetime, right? This probably like won't help you like when you're in heartbreak, but like is interesting nonetheless. Researchers, they've tracked actually how people recover from heartbreak, and the stats show immediately after a breakup or a heartbreak, studies suggest people report their pain level at roughly 3 or slightly higher on a 1 to 7 scale, with emotional intensity decreasing by roughly 0.07 points each week. So it gets a little less worse each week. Now, 0.07 seems like nothing, right? But it shows heartbreak feeling does change. It does diminish with urgency in your mind. But to love is to risk heartbreak. And Jesus shows it's worth the heartbreak. Music came to mind for a lot of the emotions today. Maybe that's just how sadness or hurt feelings work. But there's this newer country song that I'm going to play for you. It's like 30 seconds long. And he sings like the love or the ride is what he refers to, is worth the fall is how he sings it. Check out the 30 seconds of this song.
But even when I fell off, the ride was worth the fall. The fall was worth the smiles. The smiles were worth the tears. Tears were worth the miles. Miles were worth the pain. Pain was worth it all. It's all worth this life. Life is worth the ride. The ride is worth the fall.
I've hit all genres today, so you're welcome. But the lyrics are rich. Like he says, the ride was worth the fall was worth the smiles were worth the tears were worth the miles were worth the pain was worth it all. It's all worth this life. The life is worth the ride is worth the fall. When you hit heartbreak, remind yourself, you gotta love. But we see Jesus, even knowing heartbreak happens, sadness still follows. Sadness is a painful emotion resulting from loss. Maybe it's a person, an item, or an idea. It's the emotion that shows this person, this thing, this idea meant something. There's a time when Jesus, he loses a friend, Lazarus. Lazarus is dead, right? And he mourns because he's sad. Like he is sad because he had something and no longer does. Like I get this maybe sounds basic to some of you, but like I want to say it again. He had something he loved and then no longer has it. If that happens, there should be sadness, right? Because it means he loved. Like this person meant something to him. But like I know some of you avoid sadness like the plague, right? And it makes sense to like some degree. Like we don't want to feel the sadness, that pitted feeling. But again, for some reason, like we watch sad movies. We like think about sadness sometimes. Like here are some popular sad movies that like just like Marley and Me, Coco even, like The Fault in Our Stars, A Star is Born. There's so many sad movies that like they keep making them, so people keep wanting to watch them and like them. Why do we do this to ourselves? Why do we like sad movies? Why would we call these good? And Brene states, people quote like things about these movies, things like, it was beautifully devastating, so relatable, what it means to be human, I felt less alone. We feel connected through sadness. Knowing what we're feeling is not just us. Sadness is a way for us to express the deep love that we had and have. It's a way for us to tell our story of love when loss happens. Are you letting yourself tell that story? We need to like let ourselves feel sad when we lose something, because to not have something anymore should be sad, right? It should move us emotionally. Otherwise it alludes to having, not actually moving us emotionally. Like having wasn't really that big of a deal to us then, is what it shows us. Now, since our life here is temporary, we will have joys and sadness, right? Brene states it like this: to be human is to know sadness. Owning our sadness is courageous and a necessary step in finding our way back to ourselves and each other. To be sad is to give honor to this void of another or a thing that is no longer in your life. Now, I think it's worth pointing out, because moms, you maybe got your husband or your kids here with you today, and you want me to explicitly say this for you. Just because there are tears doesn't mean you're weak or that you're necessarily even sad in that moment. Crying does not equal sad or immature. It can mean sad, but not always. Crying means something mattered. Weddings, baptisms, graduations, Pixar movies, children's books, right? They can remind us things mattered. We cry in these moments because something is mattering to us. And so that could be a happy cry, or in times of sadness, because something mattered to us. It stirs in us. And again, like, I'm a man, and if you're anything like me, like when I watch an emotional movie, I become a detective in the room instantly. Like, it must be dry in here. Is there pollen? Did someone open the window? Like, oh, I got itchy eyes. Like, oh, right? I mentioned books as well, is what where sadness is concerned. I recently was reading the book, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It's a child's book to my oldest, Eliza. And spoiler alert, it talks about a lion going to die for one of the children who was a traitor. And how the people mocked him and demeaned this lion. They insulted him, and he just let it happen. And if you haven't picked up on it yet, it's to depict Jesus. And I get it. Like, I'm a pastor, so like the story of Jesus it's like super special to me, right? But I'm like bawling as I'm reading this to my daughter. And she's probably a little too young for these books. She's 5, but I don't care. But I'm reading it, I'm crying, and she's just like, oh, they killed him. Interesting. That's it. As I'm bawling, right? But to me, my tears were showing something mattered. And it was the sadness that reminded me of like what Jesus has been through, but it also means like it was like the joy of what Jesus went through for me. It meant something to me. Again, Jesus knew sadness would happen. He was no stranger to it. He wept. And if he was sinless, he shows us sadness wasn't a sin. Like Jesus wept, like the shortest verse, right? What we continue to do with sadness then becomes grief, or is grief. Now, we could do a whole series on grief, but to put it simply, grief is the loss of something and learning to live with the new reality. One of the most helpful things for me in understanding grief is understanding kind of the stages of grief. Because as people learn to live with a new reality, they typically do similar-ish things. They don't always, and it's not necessarily in the same order, but they live in they do these similar stages. And if we're daring to love, we are all going to have heartbreak and loss and sadness from the love at some point. So knowing the stages of grief are worth it for yourself and for others, like so that you can be emotionally intelligent enough and help them in that. But the stages are this, like denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Again, they go in different orders. Jesus dealt with some grief from his loss of Lazarus. But we also see how others responded to that same loss as Jesus. Like the sisters of Lazarus, what happens is they blame him. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Again, one of the stages, like it's like a denial. Like they're like, no, like, and there's anger, right? And Jesus isn't like, girl, you don't bring your anger to me. Like that's not what he says. He doesn't call her out. But he didn't necessarily display each of these stages personally. But it doesn't mean they're wrong. I mean, Jesus had a greater knowledge than we do, and he probably knew it wasn't worth, like, if you look, he probably knew it wasn't worth doing the bargaining thing or the going through depression or whatever. He knew that. Now, you and I, we don't know that. But that doesn't mean like we should be, that what Jesus modeled for us is what we should do in grief. We might need to grieve in these stages. Because unlike Jesus, we don't have this greater knowledge. But regardless, part of Jesus' grieving process is he wept because Lazarus was dear to him. Yet because of a loss of friend, it didn't make him stop all other new relationships. And this is kind of back to my main point. In almost all of these hurt emotions, Jesus' love stayed open. It stayed giving and receiving. That's the key he displayed. Jesus never closed himself off emotionally to avoid pain. All these emotions were painful, but the answer to them in Jesus' example wasn't love less. Even after betrayal, he still loves. Even after intense grief, he still loved others. Even after knowing the cross is coming, he still loves. Even after abandonment, he still loves. His model to us is, even amidst all these emotions, love is still worth it. Why, you may be asked? Like, it's a real question. Like, why? Why would it be worth it? Like, did Jesus know that, like, what he was modeling, like, and chose to do in these moments would change things for people that he was with, or change things for the hundreds who start the church, or change things for the 2,000 years of church history, like, and people just are going to remember exactly how he handled grief. I mean, theologically speaking, maybe. I don't know, maybe. But what I do know is in the face of all of these hurt emotions in the moment, he at the very least had hope for it to matter. Knowing the love he continued to give, even in hurt, mattered. Like he never had hopelessness. Now, hopelessness is something that comes from negative life events and having a perceived inability to change our circumstances. There was sadness, but never hopelessness from Jesus. Nor did he have despair. Now, despair is a sense of hopelessness about a person's entire life and future. Like the difference between the two is the severity. Like despair is thinking, it's all over. Hopelessness is like, you're pretty certain the door is closed or the game is ending. Jesus' example is even when his ministry is contested, when he's facing death at an early age, even when he's being nailed down to a cross, he did not have despair. Instead, he held on to hope, and what his hope prompted him to do was to keep on loving. You see, to love deeply is to risk pain. But Jesus shows us that love is still worth it, and hope is what keeps us loving. And honestly, maybe some of you right now, like, this message sits deeply with you because you're trying to carry all the hurt alone. The loneliness, the heartbreak, the sadness, the grief, the exhaustion, the disappointment. What makes Christianity unique is we don't worship a distant God who avoided this. We worship a Savior who stepped directly into it. Jesus knows betrayal, grief, loneliness, abandonment, and yet he still kept loving. Scripture says, greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. The cross is not just Jesus dying, it's God saying, you matter enough for me to keep my heart open towards you. Even knowing we would reject him, he still loved. And 3 days later, the resurrection became proof that despair, hopelessness, grief, and death, they do not get the final word. And maybe today, like, your next step is not just becoming more emotionally aware of these and holding on to hope, but maybe your step is like to finally open your life up to Jesus. Like, maybe you spent years trying to numb yourself, distract yourself, carry like everything yourself, pretend you're fine. But Jesus did not come to have you live a life like that, a suppressed emotional life. He came to forgive you, to walk with you, to heal you, to save you, and to give you hope. So today, if you want to begin a relationship with Jesus, if you want forgiveness, if you want hope, if you want to stop carrying like life alone, I simply want to invite you to respond to like stating something like this to you in your head and your heart to God, like, God, I believe in you. You've navigated some tough things. I need your direction in life. Help me. I trust you. I trust in you with my life. Saying that in your head and your heart, and if you do that, that is hope, putting your hope in God. Again, to love deeply is to risk pain, but Jesus shows us that love is still worth it. And hope is what keeps us loving. There's kind of three movements to that statement that I want you to process that truly reflect, like, are you doing that? The questions that maybe you can ask yourself is, are you willing to risk for love? Is love worth the pain in your mind? And are you willing to hope for love? It's the example of Jesus, and honestly, I think it's one of the ways moms most reflect the heart of God. Typically, moms are exhausted, they're worried, they're hurt, underappreciated, grieving, letting kids go, carrying invisible emotional weight, and still loving. One of the holiest, most Christ-like things moms do is continue to love through pain. Now, I think it's worth saying not all moms display this perfectly or well, in which grace is needed. But if you are a mom in the room, or if you want to be a mom, or if you're a dad or you're a child in the room right now, I think it's important for you, whether you're a mom or not. What's more important than being a mom that can give anyone so much purpose is for you to truly reflect Jesus. And the first move you can prioritize is emotionally always going to hope. Because hope is something all can do at all stages of life, And hope is displayed whether to your children or to the person next to you or even your mother who is not displaying Christ-like attributes maybe. Hope is learned and hope is taught. Brene quotes someone stating this. They says, children most often learn the habit of hope from their parents. To learn hopefulness, children need relationships that are characterized by boundaries, consistency, and support. Children with high levels of hopefulness have experience with adversity. Like children learn it. Adults can learn it. Anyone can learn it. And they learn it with high levels of success in it when they experience adversity. So if you're feeling adversity or hurt moments, your decision to hope in it will grow your hopefulness. Isn't that powerful? But that's not all. Like, hope is contagious. Check out this research. Like, being around hopeful, enthusiastic people tends to lift spirits and counteract pessimism, often referred to as emotional contagion. This shows that all people can play a part in hope and that it actually does something. It helps people love more. And when people love more, people experience more God. Do you want that personally? Do you want that for your family? Do you want that for our church? If so, keep loving and keep hoping. Can you do that? As I wrap up, I get like some preachers say stuff like that, and you're like, yeah, okay, keep loving, keep hoping, with no real action steps to it. So as I wrap up, here's a few specific things that anyone can do. Say the actual feeling. Not I'm fine. Say I'm discouraged, I'm overwhelmed, I'm hurt, I'm sad. Number 2, stop turning every emotion into anger and express it how it actually feels. Sometimes you're not angry, you're lonely, you're heartbroken, you're grieving. And instead of expressing it with anger, which I don't know why so many of us think is better, because anger is not sexy, it is not better. But express it through tears or words or something else. To share is to dare with bravery, with love. It's part of keeping loving. Number 3 is stay relational when hurt. Don't isolate. Jesus continued to be around others as he grieved and wept and felt alone. Go and be with others. And the last one is keep loving. Like intentionally try to express love. Even when you know it might cost you, sacrifice the time, the money. Be willing to go emotionally there, even knowing you could get hurt. Say the thing you might not hear back. To avoid pain, you can close your heart, but to truly live, to truly love, to truly reflect Jesus requires staying open. And hope is what keeps us open and loving. Would you pray with me as I close this? Hey, God, thank you for today. Thanks for the moms in the room. But God, thank you for just like helping us learn through you of how we've been able to, how we can navigate grief and sadness and hurt. And God, I just pray that you give us wisdom on how to deal with that in our own lives. And then God, have us continue to be hope. Have us continue to be love. And God, have us be willing to risk for it. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.